Welcome to Sweet Mountain Crafts Fibercast number 13. Join me today as I talk about some spinning, lots of projects getting closer to finished, and some exciting shop news and business news for myself and some upcoming ventures that are going to be happening. Come on in and let's get started. Hello, fiber friends. Welcome back to another Fibercast as I share some fun things with you. My name is Carissa and I'm filming in Cody, Wyoming. I look forward to sharing all kinds of fun stuff with you, but if you need any information from me, you can find me online at sweetmountaincrafts.com. You can contact me at hello@sweetmountaincrafts.com. And you can find me on Instagram, where I'm most active as Sweet Mountain Crafts, Sweet Mountain Fiber, and Sweet Mountain Mohair. Look for me in any of those locations if you want to see more of what I'm doing. In the meantime, thank you so much for coming and joining me today. Thank you to returning viewers for coming back to see the progress that I've been making on some of my projects. And thank you for anyone new that's joining me. I hope you find something here that you can relate to and something fun that encourages you in your own fiber fun. So today, first of all, what am I wearing? This is the Drifter Shawl by Tammy Gore. It is knit. I was trying to find the information on it. I apologize. I don't have that right here with me, but I do know that this variegated color in here is Ribbon Candy by Molly Klein Design, or Sweet Tea Yarns. And this was a fun shawl to knit. It's definitely a bright springtime shawl, kind of something to pull out of the closet when the days start to warm up just a little bit and need something to brighten the air some. Here in Wyoming, it takes a while for bright pops of color to come out of the ground in forms of flowers and such. It's starting to green up a little bit outside. We're starting to get some warmer days, but it'll be a while yet. So a little bit of what's been going on with me. First of all, on my last podcast, I shared about my baby goats, and they are all doing well. The 4 goats that were what I've talked about what I mentioned on the last podcast, those 4 baby goats are doing well. You can see, I'm going to insert a little video here. The baby goats are doing great. They are super cute at this stage. The biggest challenge for me is that I'd love to just sit out there with them, because the more time I spend with them, the friendlier they are. But unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time for that. So, if you want to come spend some time with some baby kids, head my way and you can just sit in my barnyard and love on those little goats. They are so sweet and so fun, but I just don't have the time to spend with them like I'd like. I will probably start milking probably in about another week or 2. I usually give the first few weeks of life, just leave babies with mamas, leave them all alone, and let them kind of get settled in before I start milking again. So my milking days are coming again here soon, but I'm giving them just a little bit more time together before I start that. Another thing I've been working on in the background a little bit is getting our greenhouse up and running. So here in Wyoming, as I said, it takes a while for warm weather to get here. And certainly that means it takes some time for things to start growing. So in order to help extend our growing season, we have a greenhouse that we start in the spring certainly before we could start anything much outside. And that is well underway. We actually started some starts inside. So I have a photo here. We started starts inside. They actually got a little bit too big before we got a chance to move them out, but now they're in the greenhouse, and I'll try and insert a little footage here of what our greenhouse currently looks like, because it will change drastically over the course of the summer. So aside from greenhouse, I've also been working on getting some beds cleaned up and just kind of getting things ready for springtime. It's always a fun time of year as the seasons change, and certainly as new life comes, and looking forward to produce and all things outside. Keeping me accountable. My project life has been kind of all over the place as far as what I've been working on and what I've been accomplishing. I actually have had a lot of fun continuing to work on my Granny Ripple blanket. It's been a fun project, but I realized, and I kind of anticipated this, but I realized that the magic knot ball that I was using, I'm crocheting this blanket. I'm not even going to pull it down right now because it's starting to get a little more cumbersome. So instead of pulling it out to show you, I'll insert a photo here. This is how far I was at the time that I finished up my magic knot ball, my previous magic knot ball. So the way I'm crocheting this is I'm holding a skein of Caron Simply Soft as my white yarn, along with a magic knot ball of minis, scraps, all kinds of things of fingering weight yarns, all hand dyed, indie dyed fingering yarns that are being held double in order to crochet this blanket. Well, my first magic knot ball was 218 grams, but the last little bit was so much of one color. I think I must have had almost 20 grams of the last color, thinking that if that's how I wrapped up the blanket, then that'd be great. But I was getting close to the end of that ball and I realized there was no way I was going to be anywhere near done. As you could see from the photo I just shared, I'd say it's even less than halfway what I want it to be, which is fine. I still have lots of Caron Simply Soft, and of course I always have plenty of scrap stash. So I went ahead and wound up another magic knot ball. You can see here some of the scraps that I collected, and then I wound them together, and here's another photo of them wound a little bit. And then I ended up with this magic knot ball. And this magic knot ball is 256 grams, I think. So it's larger than the last one that I had made. And I'm really excited about how far. I'm hoping that this one will take me to the end. We'll see. I may still get to the end of this magic knot ball and still have to add more, but we'll see. By that point, I might be starting to get a little short on my Caron Simply Soft, and as this is supposed to be kind of a stash busting project, I'm really hopeful that I don't have to buy more of this. But in order to make the blanket a worthwhile size, I'm willing to do that if I need to. So it's a fun project to work on. This is a pattern by Yarnspirations that's free and available online. And I guess I should at least show this much, where I was at last time. So let's see. I'm going to end up taking it down anyway. Here's my marker. So my marker blends in a little bit. This is a marker from Hey Country Creations, a little beaded love note that's here. So you can see I made that much progress from the last podcast till now. So that's a very fun project to work on. It's very relaxing, it's soothing, and it's kind of fun just to work up those scrap yarns. When I wind them into the ball, they just kind of disappear into the ball. So as I'm working and crocheting, it's fun to see the next color that pops out. And it just makes the whole project kind of a fun experience because you don't know what's coming next, and you look forward to that next yarn to come out of the yarn ball as I'm crocheting. My next project that you guys have been keeping me accountable on is being held in this wax canvas bag that I love. But unfortunately, this project has gone in reverse. If any of you were on my Instagram yesterday, I put up a reel showing my reverse of this project. In other words, I frogged it. So I did completely frog all the knitting that I'd done up to this point. I decided that even though, and I have evidence of this, even though I did a gauge swatch, and I measured the gauge swatch, what happened is that when I measured the gauge swatch, the pattern suggests a size let's see, I believe a size 4 and a size 5 needle. This pattern is in Coffeehouse Knits. It's the Frothy Pullover by Catrina Frost. You can see the pattern there. It's just a really cute, super fun drop shoulder sweater. And the original pattern, or the pattern, calls for a US 3 and a US 4 size needle. And I used the US 4 to do my gauge swatch, which is what they recommended, to use the larger needle in order to do your gauge swatch. I did that. The gauge swatch was too large, so I thought, no problem, I'll go ahead and go down a needle size and then I can knit the sweater. It should be pretty good based off of what my gauge was. I didn't, however, do another gauge swatch in the smaller needle size. Ultimately, the story is that when I went to the smaller size needle, it wasn't enough. It still was giving me so much more, both in width as well as in height, than what the pattern suggests that it should be. I'm knitting the 36-inch size. This is for my daughter, who's a very slight 15-year-old. And in order to get it to be her size, I thought, well, if I'm going down a size and then I do the adult extra small, hopefully this will be good for her. But as I kept going, I'm like, this is too big. This is too big. And I just kept thinking that the sweater was going to be big enough to fit me, and I wear an adult medium comfortably. And so I just kept, I was like, no, this isn't going to work. And she's like, no, it'll be fine. I don't mind if it's a little boxy and a little roomy. And so I kept going, and finally I got to the point that I'm like, go get one of your sweaters that you wear now that you really like the size of, or a sweatshirt or something like that, and let's compare. And when we laid one of the sweaters that she really likes over top of it, there was like an extra 4 inches of ease on the sweater that I was knitting. And I just said, 4 inches is way too much. Like, that's because the sweater that she was comparing it to already had positive ease in it. And so to add then another 4 inches on top of that, it was going to be huge on her. And she's like, well, I can grow into it. And I'm like, but that's not the point. I'm trying to make this for you now so you can wear it now. And if it's got positive ease, she can still grow into it. So the story is that I frogged it. I am not completely frogging this project. I will go back. I will pick this up again. I think in order to do this sweater, I think what I'm going to do at this point is I will probably go down a needle size again, which means I'll be 2 sizes below the recommended from the pattern, but then I'm also going to reduce some stitches. And I think that I will get closer to the desired finished result by doing that. In the end, I think it'll be good. I love this yarn. I'm so excited about the yarn. I'm excited about the sweater. So I'm not at all worried about the fact that I'm starting over. That's fine with me. That's just the way it goes, and that's how these things are. So moving on. All right, back to an appropriate zoom here. I don't understand what happens with my watch and how it decides to zoom out like that on me. I probably need to do a little research on that. So again, sometimes you get a wider view than I am anticipating, but that's okay. It's mostly stuff that should be part of the podcast anyway. So my next work in progress is my derecho tee, which I've just barely begun. This is a tee that I wanted to make as part of the, let's see. It's the Mal. I'm not going to remember the hashtag for it right now. I'll be sure to put it on the screen and also in the show notes. But this is a Mal with Cozy Meadow Knits with Sophie and a friend of hers on another podcast. And I decided that I wanted to do the derecho tee because I've been wanting this anyway for myself for a while. I've had the yarn for just a little bit, and I am using the recommended yarn for the pattern. This is a pattern by Allison Green, I believe is the designer for this, and it's through Barocco. So I have Remix Light. This is in their, oh, I don't have the color right here with me, the name of the color, but it will be down here as well, or in the show notes. I just really liked this soft gray. It's got a little bit of brown in it and kind of a warm gray. So how far am I? Well, I've just got my gauge swatch done. But to me, that is the beginning of any project. So especially a sweater or a garment. So I have my gauge swatch started. I think, again, this sweater calls for a US size 3 and a US size 5. I went ahead and I knit the gauge swatch in the US 3 because just looking at the weight of this yarn, it's a fairly thin yarn. I would say that it's a fingering weight for sure, but possibly a light fingering weight, just the appearance of the yarn. So I think that I need to measure my gauge swatch still and see where I land, but I may be going down a needle size on this pattern as well. I am obviously a bit of a loose knitter, so that's what happens. I go down needle sizes often on patterns because otherwise I end up with too large of a garment. And that's not what I desire, especially for this project. I'd like to get this done so that I can wear it some this summer. And that means being proactive or preventative, I guess I should say, in making sure that I've got my measurements right before I even get going on the project. This project is being held in this super adorable bag by Susan of Delightful Works. I love this bag with the honeybees and all. My husband actually, he keeps bees, and so we have our own honey on the property. And he just recently replaced a couple hives that they had died over the winter for a couple reasons, and so he had to replace some of his bees. So here in the last couple days, I've been making sugar water for him because in the spring, again, Wyoming, we don't have flowers and such yet. So the bees need a little bit of help just to get them started. So we have to make sugar water in order to put it in the hive for them until flowers and nectar start becoming prolific for their honey production. But I love the bees. I love having the honey. I love the fact that they're on our property, and that's something part of our homesteading that we do here. Although I will have to say that pretty much most of the beekeeping is done by my husband. I will help with the processing of the honey and getting it all in jars and everything like that at the end of the summer. But he does all the care and maintenance of the bees themselves. Another make-along that I'm participating in is the Make 9 make-along that Amy of Noble Character Crafts hosts every year. So I have two Make 9 boards. One Make 9 is various projects that I wanted to work on. It's a mix of items, accessories, as well as garments. And so it's kind of a mix of projects on that board. But then I have another Make 9 board that is dedicated just to socks because I do a lot of sock knitting. I like to knit socks for myself. I knit socks as gifts. I do lots of sock knitting. So I have one board that's just 9 squares of socks, sock yarns that will be socks eventually. Unfortunately, I've been busy. I have knit socks this year, but I haven't knit any from that Make 9 board until now. So I am just getting started on one of the yarns from that Make 9 board, and it happens to be a DK weight yarn. This is yarn from the Woolly Cabin. This is her, she calls the colorway crayons, and it's a DK weight, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. Isn't the color just so much fun? This is a ribbed sock, so you can see that it squishes down quite a bit, but aren't the colors just so great? The mini that I'm using, the coordinating mini, is actually one of mine that I don't even remember. I think it was just an extra that I had that I threw in the dye pot along with another dye job I was doing. But it went so well with this yarn that it's fun. It's definitely kind of a fall or winter looking yarn, but that's okay. They're DK weight, they'll get done quick. I can throw them in my sock drawer and then I'll have them later on in the year when I want them for wearing. But I am excited to be doing these. The pattern is based roughly off of the Rose Opal Knits pattern that Erica put up of her DK weight sock. And I'll put that in the show notes below. This is a free pattern online on their website. And I told myself I was going to follow the pattern, but the reality is that I'm really bad about following sock patterns because I kind of want socks to be non-thinking, just straightforward, just go, get it done, take it with me when I go places. I was at the dentist office with my kids yesterday, so sitting in the waiting area, you know, got a bunch of work done on them there. So I'm roughly following the pattern in that I used her stitch count, and hers is also rib knit, although hers is more of a like an extended rib, where mine's just the top, the cuff is a 1x1 rib, and the body is a 2x2 rib. And then my heel, I did my own style hourglass type short row heel that I like to do on most of my socks. And then I'll do probably a short row toe as well, just because that's what I'm comfortable doing, and it doesn't take a lot of extra energy, mental energy on my part to do that. You can see here I am working with the 9-inch circular needles again for this DK weight. These are a US size 3 needle, and I find that with the DK weight yarn, it's a fairly comfortable knit. This is my second pair of socks using the DK weight, using the 9-inch circulars, and I really am enjoying it. It's a lot of fun to just work around and around and around without, I customarily use a magic loop when I knit my socks, and so there's no loop this time to work through and work around. But yeah, it's just a little bit different, but it's kind of fun to kind of give my hands a break from some of the other knitting that I'm accustomed to doing and doing this style. The other thing that I should say about my socks is that I'm always a 2 at a time sock knitter. So even though these socks are on 9-inch circulars and it's 1 sock per needle, I still knit simultaneously. And the reason for that is I have horrible second sock syndrome. I am really bad about knitting a sock. If I just knit one, it takes me a long time to get up the motivation to knit the second one. Where if I will either knit 2 at a time with a magic loop where they're both on the same needle, or in this situation what I'm doing is that I knit a cuff, knit a cuff, knit a leg, knit a leg, knit a heel, knit a heel, and I just go back and forth. So it's more like simultaneous knitting rather than exactly 2 at a time. But what that does for me is that mentally I know that when I get done with the toes, I will have a pair of socks, not just one waiting for its mate. So that's my method of staying on top of getting a full set done at one time. I don't know why that is for me, but for whatever reason in my brain, I think it's just I'm ready to jump to the next project. And when I feel like something's done, it's time to go to the next. And so the idea of starting at the beginning again with the second, it just doesn't do well with me. So it's good for me to do it this way. All right, next up I have some spinning related items to share. So first of all, actually my daughter and I had a lot of fun getting out some fibers and playing with my brother drum carder. I have a motorized drum carder, and I have played with it a little bit, especially I got it just a little before Christmas, so being able to play with it some over the holidays was fun. But then I've been really busy, hadn't played with it for a while, so we got it out and played with it some more. Here's one of the lovely fibers that we got carded up. It's just a blend of all kinds. I don't even know the fiber content, honestly. There's sparkle in there. There's all different blend of colors. This was actually one that my daughter carded this up. I kind of was there helping coach along, but she did the color choices mostly on this bat. So, and it's kind of rolled up like it's a roll egg, but it's more of a bat. So when I go to spin it, I'll probably end up pulling it into smaller pieces to spin, but it's just a super fun, super pretty color. And then with this bat, I actually have some locks that I hope to get some tail spinning done. So this is where I'll take these beautifully dyed locks that were a gift to me. I'll take these, and some of these are so long, like the staple length on them, it must be almost like 9 inches on some of these. They're so long. But anyway, I look forward to taking some of these locks and spinning them in with this fiber to just add even more texture. Won't that be pretty together? So this is a project that I have in mind for doing some art yarn here before too much longer, for sure. I've been enjoying being back behind the wheel to do some art yarn. It'd been a little bit of a break. I've been doing a lot of spinning, but mostly finer spinning and not art yarn for a while. And I kind of get an itch for wanting to do art yarn because there's so much flexibility to it. There's a lot of freedom in it. And I'm not looking for something very specific or very particular, but just kind of a general overall feel to the yarn and an aesthetic with that yarn. And so when I haven't done art yarn spinning for a while, I feel like my hands get kind of itchy or ready to do it again. And that's kind of how I've been feeling lately. So that's where I'm at with some of these in progress projects. Another work in progress is another art bat that we carded up. Actually, I think at that point my daughter was done. She went on to doing other things. But this was actually a mix of fibers and other goodies that I kind of had shown off. Let's see, I don't even remember which podcast it was, but it was a while ago. I had shown off this stuff and thought that I would be able to get a chance to spin it before now, but I haven't. And in a way, it's kind of fun that I hadn't. So I'm going to show a picture here. This will show a better picture of some of the goodies that are in this bag. But then what I did is I took that fiber that was just a braid of roving, and I ended up taking that fiber and putting it on my carder and adding lots of other fibers to it. So in that picture, there was some mohair, there was some yarn scraps, there were a variety of things that I ended up putting together with that roving in order to create this bat. So this is a very fun, again, just colorful, exciting bat of colors. Let's see, like right there. Isn't that so fun? I love putting all these colors together like that. So again, this bat, I'll split it and kind of put it into smaller, more manageable units for myself as I go to spin it. But then I will spin it along with some of these other goodies. My plan is to do an auto wrap with the silver. So this silver thread will go around the cord around the yarn as I'm spinning it. And then lots of times I take my art yarns and I coil them. So I will usually use a core spun where I will either have a pre-made yarn that I spin around, or I will do a self core spinning, which is where you take some of the fiber of the yarn itself and you create its own core, and then you wrap the fiber around it. And so actually this picture here shows a little bit of me carding this fiber. And then in this next picture, you can see that I've done some core spinning with some of the fibers. So not the bat that I was just holding, but with another bat made with similar fibers and similar colors. And then after I core spun it, I took it and then I coil spun it and made a finished art yarn. So this is an art yarn that I completed from the bat that I showed in those photos. So this is just a super fun, you can see that coiling there where it's coiled, each individual section is coiled around a core. So the core on this one, here you can see at the end here, this is the core for this yarn. So it's just a white yarn, some leftover, lots of times I'll choose to use like a wool or possibly a cotton, but a natural fiber of some sort, just because it seems to grab the yarn better, grabs the fibers better as I'm core spinning it. But I core spun this on that. This one makes me think of like an ice cream shop for some reason. There's a little bit of green in there and the pinks for sure. And anyway, so I got this art yarn all done. Now this is ready for a weaving project. I will probably do this into a freeform weaving project like I like to do, but that'll come at a later date. So right now I mostly just enjoyed the process of making the art yarn, and like I said, with those two other bats that I just showed, this is kind of the direction that I'm heading with those as well. So I'll have in the end a finished art yarn, coil spun art yarn that I can use then for weaving later on. My next works in progress, one is almost done. I just need to weave in ends, block it. But I did finish my shawl that I was working on. This uses the Geyser Beauty set that I had dyed. And this is just a very, very simple shawlette, a garter ridge shawl with a lace section here of, again, just a very, very basic lace with yarn overs and knit two togethers. And this shawl is a fun part of something else that I get to share here soon. But before I move on, I did have also, as I said in my last podcast, the crochet version that is similar to the knit version. This is knit using one of my sock sets called, I think it was just a sagebrush sock set. And I've gotten a little bit further with this, but there's still some details I'm trying to work out. So I have just the beginning of the shawl started, and then my lace section, which is kind of a star lace in here. I like it, but I think there's some math I need to calculate to get this squared away and fixed up. But ultimately, this will be a reflection of this shawl. So that they're very similar. There's the knit version or the crochet version. But kind of the same idea with a section of the main color, a section of lace using the coordinating color, and then a section of the body using the main color again, or finishing it off with that main color. So those are some shawls that are in progress. Ideally, these will be done very soon because they are part of a much bigger work in progress I have going on. I decided today it would be worth sharing with you all that I am in the process of purchasing a yarn store here in Cody. I am so excited about this. This has been something I've been working on for some time now. It's still got so many details that have to be worked out and determined and decided, but part of the process with this and part of my big work in progress right now is that in order for this yarn shop there is an existing yarn shop in Cody. The yarn shop that exists currently, Grand Loop Yarn and Fiber, is being sold by the owner to me, and she is closing doors for a couple reasons. She was ready to retire, as well as the building that she's in just recently sold, so it was time for her to look for a new location. Well, since we'd already discussed the possibility of me taking over that yarn shop, we decided that it was a good time with the building being sold and everything happening. It's kind of helped spur this project further forward. And so now I'm in the process of remodeling an auto shop. So here's a photo of a current auto shop here in Cody that I shouldn't say current. The building is current, the shop is not. The auto shop has left. We now are working on revamping this entire building and getting it ready to move in a yarn store. So I will be purchasing all the inventory and everything from the existing yarn shop, moving it over into the yarn shop that I'm working on, and you can see some of these progress pictures here. And then in time, hopefully sometime this summer, I will be opening Wyoming Yarn and Fiber. I'm so excited about this. And as this is news that's starting to spread here locally, and as there will be new things coming out in the next few weeks starting online, I have some help trying to get some things going with a website, and there will be a newsletter and an Instagram account and all those fun things that go with having a business. I'll be starting those things and getting them in progress here soon. But these shawls that I'm designing are for Wyoming Yarn and Fiber. So the patterns are going to be free for people that will sign up for those newsletters. And this is all still work in progress. As I said, these patterns still need to be finished, being written up and then edited and finalized for you guys. But as soon as these are available, there will be information coming out very, very soon. about where you can sign up for a newsletter about the shop, and in that newsletter gain access to these patterns. So that is a huge part of my life right now, trying to turn an auto shop into a yarn store. And let me tell you, it is a lot of work. The auto shop has been there for 20 years. So I and my husband and my kids have been working to clean grease and soot and dust from 20 years of auto mechanicking, and try and get that all away and cleaned up, and removing smells and stuff like that, so that when we move the yarn shop in, none of that will be there anymore. The idea is that there will be some changes to the exterior of the building as well, installing some windows and stuff too for this space. So there's still quite a bit of work to be done, but it's just a really exciting process as we work to get this further along. So already I've gained so many words of encouragement from people online that know about this, and certainly from friends locally that are finding out. It's a very exciting proposition for me. This is a new career move for me. So this is going to be a big change from being a stay-at-home homeschooling mom to being a shop owner and running a shop that has a physical location, not just a business out of my own house. So anyway, if you have any insight or tidbits or thoughts, feel free to share them in the comments. I have a lot to learn and so many new things to discover. So certainly any kind of thoughts or encouragement, I am happy to receive anything that you guys might have to share. Well, since that's my big news today, let's look at a few other things that I've been working on, some other finished objects, and just some fun things that I've done aside from trying to build a new yarn store. I have, in this photo here, I did finally finish the toe on that other sock that I was repairing. So while those socks in that photo there are not newly knit, the toes had blown out and I just knit a replacement toe. So I got that project done from my last podcast, and I got that project done for my last podcast and was able to put those socks back in my sock drawer. Another finished object, do I get to count this as a finished object when a friend sends me a finished object that she knit for me? This is the hat and wristlets that Corinne of Gingy Knits knit when she knit the pattern to go with my Two Sisters and Some Yarn set. So this was a pattern inspired by the podcast Two Sisters and Some Yarn, as well as the yarn inspired by Two Sisters and Some Yarn. And I dyed this set up, and I had purchased something recently from Corinne, and so she was so sweet to send these to me. I'm really excited actually to have these. I love this set. I think she did such a great job. These wristlets are adorable, and the hat is super fun too. I'd put the hat on, but my hair thing would probably grab it, so I'll just hold it up for you. It's just such a great set. So again, the pattern for these will be in the show notes, and the yarn is still available as a pre-order on my website. That pre-order will probably be closing sometime this summer. So if you still are interested in getting some Two Sisters and Some yarn dyed for you to be able to use to knit something, either knitting Corinne's patterns. She had the socks that went with the set as well. From the one set, she made the hat, she made the wristlets, and she made the socks. So because that set is one full skein and two 20-gram minis, it goes quite a ways. So if you're at all interested, make sure to get in on that pre-order before I close that down later on this summer. All right, so not my finished object, but still super fun to receive. So thank you, Corinne, and I'm excited to have those for sure. I don't have any other finished objects at this time, so instead let's talk a little bit about some of my acquisitions. As I just said, Corinne, I had ordered a package from Corinne. It was this spinny cube spinner. I recently acquired an Eel 6 spinning wheel, an electric eel wheel, and I wanted to compare another electric wheel to the Eel. So I ordered that from, or Corinne had one that she was getting rid of, and I went ahead and purchased that from her. And she was so kind when she sent it. She also sent some fiber. Here's Tempting You yarns. This is some Roving. It's BFL, let's see, 75% BFL, 25% Tessa Silk, and it is so fun. Can you see a theme here? I think there's a little bit of a theme maybe going on. But this was super fun to get in the mail. I was excited and just pleased to see this in there, and I know that I'll have fun spinning this up at a later date. But the spinning cube itself, I haven't put it to use just yet, so I will try and take some time eventually to play around with that and see what I can find out about it. Another acquisition that I have is this beautiful Roving. This is naturally colored. It's this super rich chocolatey, dark chocolate brown. It's just a lovely color with little bits of heathering throughout with some lighter brown and a little bit of white flecked in there. But this is Black Welsh Mountain Roving or top from Fiber Frolics Boutique. And I purchased this yarn because it's part of the Shave Them to Save Them program. The Shave Them to Save Them is a nature conservancy program that, or rather a livestock conservancy program, excuse me, that focuses on trying to keep breeds that are in some, like, maybe not endangered, but in lower numbers throughout, that causes them to be on a conservation list. And so Shave Them to Save Them is a way to support ranchers that might have animals that fit this list by utilizing their fiber and encouraging the idea of helping to maintain those flocks. So the Livestock Conservancy works with all species, all kinds of species of animals, but specifically Shave Them to Save Them works with animals that produce fibers that can be used for spinning, knitting, crocheting, all the fiber arts. So I have started collecting some of the fibers. This is my second one, I suppose, that will meet the Shave Them to Save Them program. And the idea is that as I work to spin or work with this fiber, then I get to put a sticker in a passport book that I have, and then I get to keep track of how many of the different breeds that I actually work with from that program. My goal is hopefully to eventually get a chance to work with all of them, but I have no timeline on this. It's just as I get opportunity to. But I really was just so intrigued by this super rich color and the opportunity to work with some more Shave Them to Save Them. So again, links for that information about that will be in the show notes. If you have any questions about it, there's all kinds of information online. There's a great group on Facebook that where you can share images and people talk about the program as well. So there's just lots of resources online to be a part of that. And yeah, lots of fun. All right, the last thing that I want to talk about, I actually meant to mention in my last podcast, and I don't know how it got forgotten, but it did. So I apologize, Tabitha. I dyed up another podcast inspired yarn, and I have had so much fun dyeing this yarn and dreaming up the colors and all of that I don't know how I missed getting it mentioned on the last podcast. But Murder Knits is a podcast with Tabitha as the host, and I approached Tabitha and requested that I could dye a podcast-inspired sock set for her. So I dyed up this set that you can see in this image here, where it has a color pop or a color burst on the yarn, and I just thought that went really well with the Murder Knits theme. And then her logo uses this really fun kind of a minty aqua color as the main color. So the yarn dyed up super fun. I love dyeing these, and these are pre-order currently in my shop. So I have a number of people that have ordered these. I had some more just go out in the mail today actually. But with this set you get the main yarn, which has again these color pops. that I'm looking forward to knitting. I don't have a specific project in mind, but I have ideas of what I'm going to do with this. And then it also comes with a coordinating mini. So the Hankette going with the main color there. Anyway, this was a super fun project, a super fun dye to dream up, and it is also fun for me to dye currently in the dye studio. So that's something that's available in the yarn shop online. Feel free to check that out. I should say, and I should go back really quick, with the purchase of the yarn store with Wyoming Yarn and Fiber, Sweet Mountain Crafts is not going anywhere. Rather, it's not going away. It is going to move out of my garage and into the same building that Wyoming Yarn and Fiber will be in. Wyoming Yarn and Fiber is going to be the brick and mortar yarn store that is available for anyone that comes visiting to Cody, Wyoming. Come visit my yarn shop. But Sweet Mountain Crafts will continue to be an online entity and a dye studio that produces yarns for that yarn shop and also continues to produce independently online and for wholesale accounts and stuff. So Sweet Mountain Crafts is here to stay. It's not going away, and yet Wyoming Yarn and Fiber will be a partnership, I guess you might say, with Sweet Mountain Crafts. I'll be running both businesses and keeping both going strong, one in a physical sense and the other with all of it, the online entity. So one is a production, the other is the final retail space. So just so that there isn't any confusion there, hopefully that makes sense to everybody, that Sweet Mountain Crafts and Sweet Mountain Yarns will continue to be in production. All right, the last thing that I want to talk about really quick is I am still on Patreon. I have had a number of supporters over there, and I want to take a moment to say thank you to all of you. I so appreciate the interactions that I've had with you guys and just the financial support, certainly. It's just been a really great opportunity to share a little bit of what I'm doing. They obviously had first access and first knowledge of what was going on with the yarn store, and they continue to have insight on what's going on with my dye studio and with that whole process as I'm working to get that building ready. With Patreon, my Yarn Fanatics level, which is the level at which you can participate and receive a monthly yarn set, I have dyed now 2 months worth. The first month was this Geyser Beauty, which I've shown off here a couple times. Geyser Beauty was the March yarn set that I sent out to patrons. And then last month I did Sweet Mountain, which is this yarn here. This is a super fun, crazy set that I dyed up, and it is reflective of this image. So this was the inspiration photo for Sweet Mountain. And again, that went out to my patrons for the month of April. I have yet to dye up and prepare May just yet. That will be getting done in the next week or two and then headed out the door to my patrons. But just so you know, if you're at all interested in being a part of that monthly club, I guess you might say it is, that tier of patronage, you can look for the information. Again, the link will be below, and this is the Yarn Fanatics tier. I've opened up 5 more spots for that level, so if you're at all interested, make sure to grab up those spots. I'm going to be keeping those spots somewhat limited because I can't overwhelm myself too much as I have all this work that I'm doing, obviously, behind the scenes with getting a yarn shop ready. So I won't be able to extend this much further. If you're interested, be sure to snag one of those spots soon. One more shop talk thing that I need to make sure to mention here is I just advertised my Christmas cash kit. My Christmas cash kit is a bit like my Advent kit. It's a little different than most Advent kits in that at this point, I have not done a 24 or 25 day set for Advent. Instead, what I try to focus on is trying to slow things down, keep it a little bit simpler. This year in particular, I even took a step back from what I had offered last year. Last year, you can see here, I offered an Advent set, or a Christmas kit rather, of 12 yarns, 12 minis that went together, and there was one shawl designed by myself, a crochet shawl, and a shawl designed by Dole Valley Girl Knits. A knit shawl design. So this year we are repeating that. Lisa from Dole Valley Girl Knits is designing a knit pattern again for my advent or my Christmas cash kit this year, and I am designing a crochet shawl again. But this year, rather than there being 12 colors, there are 5. There's going to be 1 full skein of a sport weight Wyoming non-superwash Rambouillet yarn, and there will also be 4 50-gram skeins. So it's a total of 300 grams of this non-superwash wool that is raised and processed and dyed all here in Wyoming. And then from that, or along with that kit, I should say, this year I am also including a mug that is going to be made by a local potter, and his skills are just phenomenal. I love what Mark does in his pottery studio. I've seen a number of his mugs, and so along with the yarns, there is a handmade pottery mug that will be included in this kit. There's also a hand-woven kit for weaving your own ornaments that you can use either on a Christmas tree or just as decoration in your home. And of course, all the other goodies and all kinds of love that I love to pour into these boxes. So if you haven't been aware, the Christmas cash kit this year has been advertised on my Instagram, and it is about the spices and smells of the season. That's the inspiration this year. So be sure to check those out. Those are available for pre-order at this time. And again, because of just how busy things are for me, and also bearing in mind the other participants in that kit, I need to be careful of how many pre-orders there might be. So this will be a somewhat limited pre-order this year. So if you're all interested in purchasing, be sure to stop by and look into purchasing that kit. All right, I think that's all for me today. I have a number of things I need to go do, so I'm out of here for now. I wish you all well. I wish you a happy spring, and I look forward to being in touch with you again before too much longer. Happy fiber fun. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Yes?